Welcome to the HypeLight Podcast Experience, where we teach you what you won't learn in school. From careers to financial literacy, we give you the information you need to bridge your passion with your purpose.
Without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for this evening, Mary McElroy, who you just heard from. She is a Brooklyn native, and she has taken her New York City grit into the male-dominated construction industry. Her and her husband have been able to build and grow Graphic Builders, their general contracting firm, into a multi-million-dollar business and a leader in the New York City residential construction field. The eldest girl of 7 paved the way for her younger siblings through her resilient approach to life and education. Mary has always valued learning and looking through a growth-driven lens, built not only on a thriving business, but a wonderful family. Mary, welcome to HypeHuddles, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. Thanks for that introduction. I'm so glad to be here.
It's great to have you. You've been very much a supporter to HypeLight in the past, so we appreciate you being game for this news program. But I want to jump right in. We obviously have the title of becoming a marketing maven, but we don't really know what that means sometimes. So can you bring us into your world? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you're up to now, and then we'll kind of work backwards and go a little bit deeper.
Okay, well, I think you gave the overview. Myself and my husband own a general contracting company. We do residential construction, very high-end projects, a lot of custom work in New York City. We are celebrating 24 years in business next month. We are parents of 3 boys, and I have a great team of people who work with me. I have wonderful clients, and we have a great partnership and have turned it into a great business.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to, speak with you as such a full-rounded business person, mother, wife. But the main, I think, thing that might stick out, and I want to touch on it, is being a woman in the construction industry. Is that something that you've always been interested in? Is it something that you've always had a passion for? How did you kind of get to this point in your career?
Well, I would say it wasn't linear. It was a connect the dot kind of thing. I've always been interested in design and building and decorating. Always had that piece. My dad was a carpenter by trade, so he spent a lot of time in his workshop putting things together. He encouraged us. He did a lot of side work in Brooklyn. He did a lot of cabinetry, a lot of kitchens, and he was an equal opportunity employer. So whoever was available and wanted to go, he took with him on projects. So I grew up around that. I designed my own wallpaper in my bedroom when I was young. I love putting things together like that. So I've always had that as something that I love to do in terms of, I guess, creating home and that kind of environment. But I wasn't schooled in that, so I didn't go into that. My degree is in marketing and English. But being a woman in the industry, has it been hard? Yes and no. I mean, it's unusual to see a lot of female construction owners. I think overall in the construction industry, maybe women are 10%, and that's changing, which is a good thing. But I have a very strong, I think, male side of my personality, and I think it lends itself naturally to what I do. So I think that's part of what has made me successful. There are a lot of guys that I work with who respect and enjoy working with me, so there's that mutual camaraderie. Nobody has ever given me a job because I'm a female. Maybe they didn't give me, that I know of, like no one's hiring me specifically because I am or am not a female. People hire me because myself and my husband, because we do good work. We understand how to build, we understand how to manage projects, and we have a skill set that contributes to building a beautiful home for them. So I had a client recently who said to me, he's done, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 different projects. And he said, Mary, of all of the contractors I have ever used over the years, you and Gary, who is the architect, the combination of our skill sets was the best brand project he has ever done. So, I mean, that was great to hear. He didn't hire me because I'm a woman. He hired me because he thought I'd be the best for his job. But to hear that he's done 8 or 9 renovation projects and he felt like we brought, something to the table that was different, that's great.
I think that's a very important to point out is not because you're a certain person you're getting hired for a job, but you're providing a service at a high quality, which makes you then attractive for the potential job or the contract. Can you tell us a little bit more about the residential construction, the actual work that you do, just to give people a little bit understanding of what it is a general contractor does, just to understand the job in and of itself a little bit better?
Sure. So a lot of my clients are buying apartments in the city and they're doing like gut renovations. So meaning they're going in and we're basically demoing everything that is there, taking it down to the studs, and then we're rebuilding. So we handle everything from the demolition to all the electrical, all the stuff behind the walls, all the new plumbing stuff. And then we do all of the finishings and fittings. So wood floors, custom cabinetry, appliances, marble and tile, painting, decorative painting, specialty sound systems. The stuff that we work on is very custom. So there's a high level of craftsmanship that's involved in all of the stuff that we do. So that's the work part of it. And then there's the management part, because you can be managing 10 to 20 different trades on any one of our given projects. So you have to understand the building piece, how to build and how to do it well. And you also have to understand how to manage it. Those are the 2 pieces. And then you have to bring it in on the budget and on time with the quality that the client is expecting. So you're managing all of those expectations, all of those resources. It's like a team for building, all of these different players. I say this all the time, building is a team sport. From the guy who sweeps the floor on my job site to the person who puts in, this decorative high-end fixture or specialty artist who does a beautiful sort of faux finish paint job. Everybody has to work together. That person who does that beautiful faux finish paint job, if my painter who plastered the walls and skimmed it out didn't do a good job, their result is not going, that end result of what it's supposed to look like won't look the way it's supposed to. So it all builds on each other. That's the team element of it. And in the end, you hope you have a client who, not hopes, that you deliver something to a client that they love and that they tell their friends about, because my customers, my clients, typically I get them through word of mouth, through I renovated for somebody else, I'm brought into a new project. That's how our business works. I don't have clients who will find me on Facebook or Instagram. They are finding me through a source. Usually it's their architect or a designer or maybe a financial person who will recommend us or someone they've worked with. It's a word of mouth. It's a building of your reputation kind of business. So every project is key.
That's really interesting that you brought that up, because I actually want to go into a little bit deeper about the word of mouth side of things, because someone like yourself with a marketing background, how has that played a role, since you don't have to market are you saying that you don't have to market in a way, or are you saying that it's kind of lighten the load because you built such a reputation for yourself that you don't have to do as heavy of a marketing?
That is your marketing. You have to understand how your client reaches you, right? So I know how my clients are going to potential clients are going to find me. They're going to find me through influencers, not the influencers that you might see on Facebook or Instagram, but influencers in terms of professionals who they work with, right? High net worth people, they have their resources. That's who they go to. So I have to make sure that I have a relationship with those resources. So if I work with a lot of the same architects and designers. I'm really like, I look at my work with them as being a partnership where I am helping them build their business, build their brand, build their reputation through the work that I do. So that if they bring me into a project, they can be assured I'm going to be professional. I'm going to be on time. I'm going to stick to the numbers I gave to a client. I'm going to build great. I'm going to provide excellent customer service, great Irish hospitality, that the feeling is going to be just great overall. That's why people bring you into projects, or the people that I work with. That's why they bring you into projects. And then they want you, the architects, they don't want me on the phone calling them for every little thing. They want to know that I know how to run stuff. I know I'm not going to come to them with every little problem. I'm a problem solver, or I see a problem coming up and I know how to solve it. So that when they come to a weekly site meeting with me, I'm not wasting their time. And they can then go off and run other projects and bring them in and bring me into it. It's this kind of partnership, resources. And I look at like the designers and the architects, they're like, they may not be a partner in my office, but we are partners with them because we feed off each other.
Amazing. So that almost it's in a way you're obviously project managing, you're delegating different roles, and you're building a team around different expertise. How did you get to this point? How did you get to your business to this point? Was it always, obviously it wasn't always, we do high-end apartments, residential, New York City. Can you walk us through the process, or at least a timeline of, from when you guys first started the business to where you are now?
Sure. So I didn't start the business. Martin started the business. He was the guy that took a risk and said, I want to go out on my own. He had been working for somebody else, running their projects, another contractor, for 10 years. He worked his way up with that company. So in 97, he decided, when we had our first son, he felt like, if I don't go out now, well, this guy's little, I'll never go out. I'll feel stuck here. So he started the business, and I was still working in the city for another company. I was involved to the extent that I could be involved. So, and I think he started out doing like smaller projects. And then it kind of grew into taking on more of a subcontractor role, where he took on business from his former employer. And then he took on bigger projects for his former employer. 2 years later, I joined the company. I came on board after our second son was born in 99. So I came on board then, and we were still taking on projects for somebody else. And we ran into a problem with the somebody else with a payment. They didn't want to, that company was growing. We had an issue with getting a final payment out of them. And I sought an attorney, and he basically said to us, well, they owe you 30 grand, that's true, but you'll spend 20 grand in litigation, so just settle with them. And we settled. Cost us $20,000. We felt like the world was ending because we really needed that money, but that was a game changer for us, because instead of building somebody else's brand and somebody else's reputation, we decided to never, ever work unless we had a direct relationship with the client and the architect. We were missing that before this. We were getting information secondhand and building somebody else's reputation with smaller projects. That changed everything for us. Then we started going after the architects or designers directly. So that's when we started really building the brand of graphic builders. Slowly, got one smaller job, we missed out on a couple of big jobs, but that we had to learn how to sell a little bit better. And that was a process. And then we started getting bigger projects. We got a couple of things published. through some of the designers that we work with. We had a couple of things in traditional home, and that brought other business our way. And then we had a very long-term relationship with an architect who constantly fed us business. And the business and the kind of things that we worked on grew over the years. And here we are. I just finished up we finished up two projects in one of the top buildings in the city. As I told you, with somebody who said they've done a lot of construction projects, and we was, some of the best that they've ever seen. So we work in really elite buildings. That doesn't mean that I don't also do lower level stuff per se. If I know that the client is right, then it's right. It doesn't necessarily have to be a certain building. It has to be the right kind of environment, the right kind of people, the right feel, the right architect, the right team. That's what we look for. And I bring pretty much the same, we've had a number of the same subs, electricians, plumbers, marble guys, cabinetry guys. Those are our people. We have worked with those guys, and we bring them pretty much on every single project because they're responsive to us. They know how we work. They meet the deadlines. They're good people. So we bring them along.
You said 24 years in the business this year, 25?
June is 24. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I obviously after 24 years, you figure something out, right? And it seems like you have.
Yeah, and yet we still make mistakes. Like you figure things out. The thing is, you don't want to keep making the same mistake.
Right.
It's good you have to make mistakes. Like when we don't get a job, it's like we do this 2020, if you will. Like, why didn't we get it? If we didn't get it and we left everything on the table, that's okay. But then if you didn't get it and you could have done something else, or you could have asked more questions, or maybe you knew you really weren't going to get it, but you stayed in the process anyway, that's not okay. So you want to make mistakes, you just don't want to keep making the same mistakes. Because that's not, it's your ability to see the mistakes you're making and correct that puts you to the next place you want to be.
And so I want to kind of go backwards a little bit. So I appreciate you sharing that the overview, but a little bit more details in the day to day and what you guys are up to now. But I'm curious about you, Mary. I'm curious about, what it was like. You said you were interested in making your own wallpaper. You were very creative and you were brought up in sort of a construction household. Can you talk a little bit more about your childhood and kind of what has shaped you to have these characteristics of someone who's a go-getter, someone who's a learner for life? Can you walk us through a little bit of the things that you're interested in as a kid, other than, like you mentioned, the creativity and the design, but maybe a little bit more of like how you were in high school, things you saw for yourself? I know that was a lot, but
all right. So let me start with like my early years. So I grew up in Brooklyn. It's very important for you to know a couple of things. I am the daughter of Irish immigrants. So that's a key piece in my whole existence. Okay. It's also important for you to know that I'm one of 7 and I'm the oldest girl in an Irish Catholic family. So if you are the oldest girl in an Irish family, you're like a mini mother. I was. And I had certain traits and characteristics that lent naturally to that, as I am very motherly, and I'm very organized, and I'm very bossy. So, perfect role for me. It's also very important when I'm talking about my childhood. I am the daughter of an alcoholic. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I don't say that with any shame whatsoever. There's one of my favorite poets, Mary McElroy. She says, "Someone I loved once gave me a box full of darkness, and it took me years to understand that it was a gift." That's sort of where I am with that. My parents did the best job they could with the resources that they had. But there was also a lot of turmoil growing up in my home, and the role that I played with being sort of very overly responsible at a very young age. So we were in Brooklyn until I started high school. And then I went to Bogota High School, and it was culture shock to come from Brooklyn to Bogota. And it was really tough, really, really tough. I did not like high school at all. I didn't like being there. I didn't really feel part of anything. I was, and I didn't want to be part of anything. I sort of had a chip on my shoulder. And I would say I was very insecure as well. So I didn't participate in anything, and I didn't feel like I felt fit in at all. I was mostly on like a business type of path, maybe like secretarial school. That's kind of where I was going. Certainly wasn't college material, until I met with my guidance counselor and talking about, what was your next stage. And I think I remember her saying to me, you're not college. I was going to Catherine Gibbs secretarial school, and she sort of chimed in and said, well, that's good because you're really not college material, or something along those lines. I don't really remember what it was, but I remember thinking, like, I think I'm going to college now, because she said that. There was something in me like, what do you mean I'm not college material? And she's right. I really wasn't college material. I wasn't taking any like college level classes. So I ended up at FDU, and I ended up in their, I guess you'd call it like their lower level program. It was for kids who really weren't college ready. It was the Edward Williams College. And I got in there, and something changed for me where I felt like for the first time, I liked school. I was interested. The professors saw something in me and were like, wow, you have something, and I was sort of like taken aback by that, but it kept me going. It gave me sustenance to say, I can actually do this. Maybe I am college material. And I turned it on in college. I went from being not like really paying attention to a great student to being a really hardworking, good student. So I went 2 years there. And then I went to a semester abroad at their Roxton College program. And I was with like the big kids now, all the real college students. And it was great. That was a great, wonderful learning experience for me. And then I graduated with a degree in marketing and English. So that's I don't know what else you had asked me. I know you asked me for my like school background, educational. That's the educational piece.
Yeah, that was my initial kind of, way into your childhood and to understand a little bit about who you were as a teen. But now I guess, you mentioned that you graduated with a marketing degree, and, so fill us in from the time that you graduated from college now with your degree and to, like you end up starting a business, but fill us in that time between that.
Okay, so first job I should tell you that my first job out of college was not the job that I wanted. I had interviewed for a cosmetics company, and I wanted this job. It was like a sexy job, like I'm going to be in the cosmetic world and, really great. Anyway, they didn't hire me. The company that offered me was a very small entrepreneurial company, all females. Maybe I was one of 15 females, pretty young, female owned. And that was my first position out of college. I think I was making $21,000 a year. It seemed like decent salary. And I met a woman there who really like shook me up into the business world. She was very, very tough, difficult to work with, but she helped me to hone my business skills. She helped me to hone my writing skills. She'd mark up every single business letter, every sales letter that I gave her, and have me redo it until it came back to something you could actually send to a client. She got me into reading business journals and understanding that if you're going to go and sell and present to a client, you have to understand who they are. You have to understand what their pain points are. You have to understand an industry. So that she was fantastic. I left there after a couple of years. And then I moved over to a job she left, actually my mentor left, and then I sort of left after because I had sold a big job there and was supposed to get a hefty commission. And I had an issue with the owner not wanting to give me my full commission. So I left because of that. Then I went over to another place and I was selling outsourcing services, mostly to big financial firms like JP Morgan and Chase Manhattan and all of those. And and I was there for several years. And then from there, I met another great guy, a great man who took me under his wing and said, he helped me with sales and marketing, and also kind of planted the seed that I had something that maybe one day I could own my own business, just some of the things that he had said to me about it. And then I had, after I left there, I worked for another company in communications for a couple of years, and worked there while I had my first son for a couple of years. And then by the time we had Matthew, after maternity leave, I knew there was no way I could go back to it. It was just too much. So I checked out of like the corporate world or the small business world, working for someone else, and then started working for Graphic full time.
Amazing. So, there's a lot there. I'm thinking a lot about how it seems like there's a pattern almost in those previous job experiences you had. And the pattern I see is you always found some type of mentor, or there was always someone that was able to help guide you and provide you with these learning examples. And that's not always the case when you find a job. Sometimes you work for someone and they don't always have that, mentor in them. But how important, or maybe any advice for, someone that's in high school or graduating from high school or graduating from college or in college, a student, and the importance of having a mentor, because you're obviously driven, but, having an extra person on your side, how important is that to find that person, and how important is it to have those types of people in your life? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I would say that is so key. And if they don't, sometimes people will show up in your life and they're supposed to be your mentors. So you have to take advantage of that, right? Sometimes you have to seek it out. I've done both, but I've always sought out help. Like because I wanted to be better. I wanted to improve myself, improve my skills. So in the three places that I worked, 2 out of the 3, I felt like I had real role models, real mentors. In the third one, I didn't. And it was okay. It was just a different environment, But I think I was taken sort of under their wings because they saw that there was something maybe in me where I wanted to work hard and grow and learn. And those were the kind of people. And you're attracted to people. People are attracted to you because they see something in you or something resonates. And I feel, and even with clients as well, like there's a certain attraction, there's a string that brings you together. So when people see someone who wants to work hard and grow, and they're the same way, chances are you got that connection there. So in my of 3 jobs, not including Graphic, I had really great mentors. And then with Graphic, I sought out mentors because this is my office. No one's knocking on the door here saying, let me be your mentor, Mary McElroy. They're not. So I went to Bergen Community College. They've got like a division SCORE, Service Corp of Retired Executives. It's a gold mine for anyone starting a business. I found a financial guy there for over a year that I worked with setting up accounts and understanding a balance sheet and all of that stuff. And then after that, I found another lady, Judy, who helped me with all kinds of marketing stuff, like, how to target people and I had some of that, but not enough. How to put it together, what your portfolio should look like, what kind of conversations you should have on the phone, how to overcome certain objections. I go back to her and say, oh, here's the job I'm working on. Then we lost it, or why did you lose it? We do like that overview of why. So, then I've had people I've sought out, like I told you that I had, I grew up in an alcoholic home. Well, nobody gets out of an alcoholic home without having issues, personal issues that you have to work on. You don't work on those issues. You bring those issues into your business, and you bring those issues into your family and to the next generation. So I've been involved in various groups, whether it's for teens and teens growing up in a family with alcoholism, young adults or adult children of alcoholics. And I've personally worked with somebody one-on-one one of my greatest life teachers for 10 years. I had a 10-year relationship with this man where I committed myself weekly to going and doing my work, talking about what I needed to do, and then taking the action. The yoga that I'm doing now, that's another teacher. Crisis, COVID brought that out, but that's the kind of work with my mind and my body for taking me now to this next stage of my life. That's the work I need. So I've taken classes. I've been involved in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program with 30 other entrepreneurs. I've been involved in the Turner Construction Management Program. I've taken classes. I'm working towards my construction management degree at Bergen Community. So if someone's teaching something, I'm showing up. If I can help somebody who I feel I can really truly help and who's earnest, I'm showing up for that. So learning and growing and understanding that there might be a better way to do something. And when you know better, you do better has always been part of my life and will always be part of my life.
What's something that you're learning now or something that you're working on now?
Oh my gosh, my brain, my mind, turning it off. That, and also the tapes in my head. That's a conversation with the universe. And when I really took a step back and sometimes understand some of the messages or hear myself think really, and some of the things that I buy into. Am I buying into a limitation? Like everybody's better than me, or I can't do that? Or am I buying into, yeah, this is hard, but I can do it, keep going? That is huge for me. And also there's a piece of that is also tied into breathing. How do you breathe? Well, what I found out was I wasn't really breathing well. Even though I'm a runner, I wasn't breathing well. So yoga has helped me with that breathing piece as well. So I am learning, this is the next stage of my growth, is really stuff tied to yoga and breath work and body. The body keeps score, okay? For years, I had problems with my stomach. I had anything tension related, it would go to my stomach. I kind of worked through that. So I know the body keeps score. I know that. My body right now through yoga and the meditation work I'm doing, I am light. I'm not carrying around any heavy suitcases. I've dropped those. I have a way to go, but something's going on with me in this stage that I hadn't anticipated. So that's what I'm working on. And I'm telling you, I am working because it's so damn good. It's so hard, but it's so good. And I am willing to put in the work to have this joy in my life, this kind of freedom and joy. So that's what I'm working on. I'm working on me. I'll be working on me until the end of my days.
That's the goal, right? It's just to constantly evolve and constantly grow. And
then it plays off into every part of your world, your career, your family. It seeps out into every single thing. One person changes in a family, you're changing generations. Like that's what the work I'm doing. Actually, this is the bigger picture of what I'm doing. You can either pass on pain or joy to the next generation. I hope that I'm living a life that's creating something that's passing along joy. That doesn't mean that things aren't going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to have big problems, but just you know how to get through them. And overall, that you have a joyful life. So I think that's rewriting history for us, for my family per se.
Yeah, that's powerful because I think at a certain age, most people kind of stop growing and stop seeking that growth. But it seems that you're at the opposite. It's like you've turned it up a notch and it's like you're really going deep with that inner work.
Yeah, I wish more people my age, well, I guess the earlier you get into stuff, like I started looking at myself in my late teens, 20s, and then it progressed from there. Particularly, it really upped when I had my own children. But the earlier you look into these things, the easier it is. But there's always time to change and grow. So, but yeah, if you wait until midlife in your 50s like I am now, it's harder. Absolutely. Not impossible, but just harder.
I have one question before we jump into opening the floor for questions. I have one last question, and I was wondering if maybe it's more of a request, or if you have any advice for perhaps a student who is growing up in an alcoholic household, someone that maybe has those burdens on their shoulder. Do you have any advice for them how to, overcome any of those struggles?
Well, I think the first thing is there are a lot of different groups and resources that you can turn to for help. I think it's good to connect yourself, if you can, with other kids. And there are programs for teens and young adults, other people who understand what you're going through, because they're a source of strength for you. Things that helped me in addition to that was one thing. The other thing I would say that would be important to look at would be getting a journal and start writing things. Like I even now, I still write a lot of different stuff. And then what makes you feel better? You have to look at that as well. Maybe it's music, maybe it's poetry. For me, I've always found solace in, some of the poems that people write, where they're kind of healing themselves and, and sharing feelings, all that kind of stuff. So I think you could take a multi-prong approach. The most important thing I would say is reaching out for help to someone. In our family, my mother was the one who reached out. She's the one who said, this isn't good enough anymore. And she started going to Al-Anon. So as I said before, one person can be the game changer. My mother went to Al-Anon, so she started there. And then she brought some of that stuff home. Like there's groups for my children. So now she knows better. Now she's doing better. So she brought us along to things. A young person can be the impetus in their own family for change, maybe change in one or other of the parents. If not, you love your parents for who they are. You can't change anyone. You can only change you. So whatever you can do as a young person in this environment to maybe seek help and growth and talk to the right kinds of people, that's what you need to do. And they have all these groups now. You can Zoom with these groups, which is fantastic. You don't actually have to go to a meeting. You can do something like this online with peers. That's the starting point.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to take a moment to open the floor if anyone had any questions for Mary.
Sure, I had a question. Was there ever a time when I guess you were starting off, or even now, where you kind of bit off more than you can chew as a business, or you thought you took on a project that was a little too ambitious? And how were you able to succeed from that? Or did you fail and ultimately learn from it? Was there ever a time like that?
Well, hi, Luke. Let me say hello to you first.
Hello.
Nice to see you. Yes, I think, and it's exhilarating and scary at the same time when you're taking off, like you're taking on new stuff. And I would say maybe some of our recent projects, I felt that way. And some of it's my wiring. I always go into everything sort of with the underdog mentality, like, can I really do this? And that's not a bad thing, because I think that mentality makes you prepare more, and be more conscientious. So you always want to do a good job in terms of that way. I think you figure things out, like as you go along. Again, you use your resources. You might be taking off more than you can chew, but then you talk to some of the people in your circle and get feedback from them. You also sometimes, I find, like, if you have taken off more than you can chew with the client, how you approach something with them, like being honest and upfront. I wouldn't say, sir, I've taken off more than I can chew, but maybe you did something, you didn't execute on something the right way. People will sometimes understand that if you're honest with them and say that, and say, but I'm going to fix it. We didn't get this right now, but I'm going to have so-and-so do this, and we're on it. People are okay with that. So taking off more than you can chew is just part of, like, growing your business. If you're waiting to be ready for any opportunity, you'll never be ready, because you're never going to feel ready, So it's just a question of just keep going, small steps, climbing the ladder.
So I have a question.
Hi, Carl.
Hi. First, can I just show a little picture?
This is my sister. So
I don't know if you can see yourself there.
yeah, I was in a fur coat there.
I said, you look as if you're going to Woodstock. I look like I'm going to Siberia. I'm the little one in the blue jacket. So what do you think as far as like 5 years, 10 years out? Do you feel like you'll still be invested in, graphic builders, bringing your sons into the business? Do you see yourself saying, I'm going to the Bahamas?
Yeah. Well, I think you know me well enough. Sorry to cut you off there. So, yeah.
Looking ahead a little bit, or you don't know yourself.
Well, I am thinking ahead a little bit. I know I'll never be in the Bahamas in terms of retirement. My husband might be there, but I know I won't. So I'll always be doing something. There's only one of my sons that has any interest in this business or the aptitude for it, and that's my youngest. But I don't think either myself or Martin would be like, oh, here you go, you're running the business. No, he's got to go out and do his own thing and get his own experience and chops and, a little dirty before he comes back here, to take on something with the business. And I already started thinking about like next stages. I might go back to school like full time. I've got a little book I'm working on, like a children's book. It's not very good right now, but it's something that, who knows, let's see where that goes. So I'll be building. I just don't know if it'll be actually like construction building. Maybe it'll be working with families and building that, or some combination. I never see myself retiring, ever. Like, no. I'll be 90 and someone will have to say, it's time for you to go. Because I love it. And I don't want to be one of these like cranky old people who look at the younger generation and think like we do everything. Like, no, I want to stay in the game and present. And I love working. I've always loved working, and I like business. And so I'll be somewhere. I'm not 100% sure where, but next 10 years, I'll still be here.
Any other questions for Mary?
I also want to ask, kind of just to give a little insight of what it might have been like owning a business during the pandemic, and how, the challenges that came with it. Also maybe the opportunities that came with it as well, and kind of what you've learned from the experience.
Okay. Well, I've learned a couple of things from the experience. So March 17th of last year, we completely shut down. So you were not allowed to work in any building in the city. And I had a couple of projects going on, which I knew would have to still be finished, but we didn't know when. So we had that going on. And then I had two big things that I was told I was getting, but I wasn't sure where the client would be with that. So they would still go through with it. So we had like a 3 month from March until June where we had no work going on. So that's a big thing. That was a big piece for us as well. The good thing was both of my projects that I wasn't sure would go forward, they both committed to go forward. In my business, it's a long sales cycle. So if one of those projects had dropped out for us, it's a tough loss, because you've worked on this for maybe 5 or 6 months, and it's your revenue now coming in for the next 7 or 8 months. So you definitely want these things to come off. And I knew that at that point in time where you can't even go and see an apartment to do like a takeoff or anything or new bids, I wasn't going to be picking up anything. So we had those things going through COVID. And then I picked up a couple of unexpected things with existing clients because a number of people went away in the city, and maybe their cleaning person came in and they left a faucet on, and all of a sudden the faucet's running over the weekend and their apartment is flooded or semi-flooded, or some area is flooded. And these are people that they call me, our company, because we're their contractor and we have that relationship, and they wanted us to do, a semi renovation. So I got a couple of things that I did not expect that way. I guess the thing with COVID is, and this is true at every stage of the business, because there's always a crisis. Like in 20 something years, we've had good markets, bad markets. I don't know if you were on the call where I said we had an issue one time with a payment of $30,000 that we didn't get because there was an issue at the end of a job with somebody. And we were a young company, and that was crisis mode. Save your money. You got to have cash flow. When things are good, that's when you bank stuff, because that takes you through periods that may not be so great. And sometimes what happens with business people, you start making money and all of a sudden you start living a big life and you start overspending and you buy a bigger car and you have a bigger house and now you have a vacation place and you have this and you have that. Then you have a little turn down or something happens with the business and you don't have the cash flow. So that would be a piece of advice that I would give to anybody starting out and at every stage of your business. You have to know how to manage your money. And that's true if you have a business or don't have a business. It's so true for young people. Like, what's your relationship with money? I give a lot of my the young people in my life a book called The Latte Factor. Simple book, but just about how you spend money, how you save money, what happens if you save early and you have a cushion for yourself. It's a big piece. If you run a business for whatever many years, you want to have something at the end of that business to take you through to retire on. So you always want to be thinking about that and your cash flow, knowing your numbers and where your stuff is coming from. Those are all key pieces. So that's a big piece that I would say to you.
And then just to follow up as well. Sorry if my microphone's a little low. I'm trying to move it closer. A follow-up would be, have you tried looking for different clients in different markets? Just because I know kind of the real estate market in New York was hit pretty hard in the fact that a lot of people were leaving the city to move to more suburban areas. So how have you kind of noticed that trend and tried to maybe adapt or do something different?
Okay, so I would say that's a question that you probably heard that in the media. That's been reported. That actually has not been the case. Yes, some people did leave, sold an apartment in the city and moved out, but it's created opportunities for other people to move in. The sales in New York City last month, they skyrocketed for April. It's the highest it's been, I think, in 4 years. So the market dropped off a little bit and people looked at that as a buying opportunity and came in. And at the level that I'm at, people are always buying in the city. They want to live there. So yeah, things may have dropped off in one way, but they picked up huge in another way. So, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of new stuff now. It's coming through my architects and designers, and I'm starting to see it come our way in terms of looking at. So to answer that question, I think sometimes you hear things like in the media or it's reported in a certain way and you think doom and gloom, and actually it's just the opposite. It's ticking up. It's really going to tick up. So have I looked at other opportunities? I think yes. It was part of what I did with the 10,000 small business program. They want you to look at like how you can pivot your business and grow. And I see that like they want to scale up your business. But we have so many resources to cover stuff. And like, could I do New Jersey as well as New York? I could, but we chose not to do New Jersey because then that takes me working on a weekend, perhaps, because we run projects in Jersey on Saturdays. I don't want to work on Saturdays, I want to be with my family on Saturdays. I want to have Saturdays off. So I'll do more of what I'm doing. but I don't want to go too crazy because I want to be able to service my existing clients and grow that way and have a continual stream coming in my way. So I think we kind of know what we can handle. Right now, we're doing okay with that.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting because it's like things might not always seem how they appear to be, because I feel like with people not being able to go on vacation or spend a lot of money on other things, like they might want to remodel their apartment or do other things that could benefit the business. So it's like good to not immediately panic and like try to adjust and flip around so much.
Yeah.
It definitely makes a lot of sense.
That's it, Luke. And you know what? Always scratch the surface. Like when you hear things like that, you have to scratch the surface and say, like, where is that coming from? A lot of that was being reported by like the real estate agents and these big real estate companies out in suburbia, because it creates like a buying, like a frenzy, right? Then all of a sudden everybody's flocking out and they're paying like 20,000 over asking price. So, you know, like it's this whole, yeah, they are paying 20,000 over asking price because now all of a sudden it seems like everybody's leaving the city. Everybody wasn't leaving the city. And also I have clients that I guess they're at a certain level, like maybe you could say the 1% in some of the jobs that we run, they're not leaving the city, they're going to the city and they're able to buy a $20 million apartment. It is what it is, you know? So those are good questions though. Those are thinking questions.
So I just have a quick question. So Mary, I know you talked a lot about the complexities of mentorship, and then you also spoke about that spark of having a teacher who was roundabout supportive, right? Like had kind of actually told you weren't ready for college, and that really solidified your want to feel motivated enough to go get to college and get more serious about school. And I wanted to know like how you've been able to keep your, like, I feel like this is a gift you have, but I hope you can tell us like how you've been able to keep your ego in check to stay motivated. Like how do you hear what you need to hear to stay motivated without maybe getting discouraged or even just pushed further in the other direction?
Ooh. Well, I would say I kind of have like a dual complex going on. Like I have one part of me that feels I'm destined for something big and great. And then another part of me that like doubts myself tremendously, constantly. And there's a yin and a yang with that, you know? I don't know how it works out with my personality. And I've always been motivated by like people telling me, no, you're not good enough, or I don't know, like, and it's so contrary to what you would think. Like if a teacher said that down or a guidance counselor told a kid, you're not really like college ready, I think people will be up in arms. But for me, it was good motivation. I needed to hear it. It pushed me to see bigger than what I was anticipating for myself, which was to go and be someone's secretary. I don't know. I don't know if it's the wiring. I don't know what is going on, but I have as much like good, healthy ego. I have tremendous doubt about everything, you know, like everybody's better than me. When I went to getting me to the 10,000 small business program, first day I was like, oh my God, I'm out of my league here. Like, how did I get here? You know, and then I went there and I ended up like winning a pitch contest about my company. And it was Goldman Sachs, like Goldman Sachs people picked me. Like I was looking around like me. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I could answer it. I don't know if it's wiring or what. It may be a combination of both. But I am definitely, what I'm becoming more attuned with is watching the tapes in my head that are negative about like, you can't do this, and sort of just seeing where I go with that. Because I think I've let those maybe be at the forefront. Like they're bigger things for me if I would turn some of that off. So I don't know if that is helpful or even answers your question. I can't explain it myself with some of this.
No, it definitely did. I feel like that, like you were saying, that yin and yang, right, in us, like it's more of a balance to the ego than it is. That makes a lot of sense. So thank
Yeah.
you.
And I just want to chime in. I mean, there's actually a study. It was in the New York Times. It was called The Triple Play, and it was looking at why certain groups have been successful. And it's interesting, some of the ingredients that you mentioned, one was a feeling that the person was destined for greatness, that they had something really to contribute. The second was that they were always looking over their back behind them, like someone's coming up, like someone's coming after me. And then the third quality was coming from an immigrant family.
Oh, well, I have all three. So there you go.
Yeah. And I do think, Mayor, growing up, I mean, some of the things you mentioned, you had an ability to really lead, organize, you had a vision of wanting things to be a certain way. And you were so talented, even when we went over to Roxton College and that professor came looking for you for the paper that you had written. He's like holding up your paper. It was just a fantastic paper on women and rights. So I think you do have really good skills and, a good brain, and you've worked it. That's what it comes down to. You've put in the work. And I think, you're reaping the rewards, and so are we, being in your life.
Thank you, Carm. Luke, that's my sister, if you didn't know.
The one in the blue coat, the little Russian. I look in the blue coat.
Thanks, Carm.
It's a family affair.
Yes, it is. And I have a good one, so it's a good thing.
I think that's a perfect segue to the activity that you have prepared, Mary. If you wanted to jump into that, we can pull up those slides.
Sure. So, well, this is, I guess, how I like to think of myself and how I feel. And I'm a visual person, so I like these slides. Everything here is visual. So it's the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset, okay? You can look at these yourself. This is not, and it's not to beat up on yourself. It's sort of take your own inventory. Like, what is the mindset that you have? Is it the green, the red? Probably for most of us, it's some kind of combination in between. And when you read it, then you can work on what you need to work on.
So just for future listeners, because we'll be putting this audio out, can you just describe what we're looking at right here, Mary?
Yeah, so this is a slide of what kind of mindset do you have? Things to ask yourself, like growth mindset means I can learn anything I want to. Fixed mindset is opposite. I'm either good at something or I'm not. Growth mindset, when I'm frustrated, I persevere. So owning a business is frustration and perseverance. Can you do that or no? When I'm frustrated, I give up. Does that apply to you in school or whatever? I want to challenge myself. Do you challenge yourself? That's a question to ask yourself. Or I don't like to be challenged. There's another question. And if you don't like to be challenged, ask yourself why. When I fail, I learn. Huge, probably the biggest thing on here, okay? All of my success and my husband's success in business is due to failure. So when I fail, I learn. That's a growth mindset. The fixed mindset is when I fail, I'm no good. Okay. Tell me I try hard. Growth mindset. So you want to try hard. Fixed mindset is tell me I'm smart. Then you become vested in just being smart. So then you're afraid to look stupid or dumb or ask a question because you want to be smart. We do a lot of that with children. You're smart, whatever. No, it's the work, it's the hard, it's putting something hard behind it. Growth mindset, if you succeed, I'm inspired. So this is a key one for all of us, right? We see somebody on Instagram, somebody getting ahead. How does it make us feel? Are we inspired by that? Or if you succeed, I'm threatened. That's also, you should look at that in terms of your friend group. Do you have friends in your life who, if you have a success, they're happy for you, they're there for you? That's a friend. If you have a success and they're not that happy for you, maybe you want to get that person out of your life. Growth mindset, my effort and attitude determine everything. Effort and attitude are the two things that you take into every space in your life that you go into, okay? You don't have to know construction, you don't have to know business, but if you come onto my job site and you have no effort and you have a bad attitude, you're not staying there. Anywhere in this world that you go and you bring good effort and good attitude, you will be successful. It may not be, it could be down at ShopRite. Effort and attitude, two key things. Or fixed mindset, my abilities determine everything. Meaning, I'm good at something, I'm good at math, whatever the case may be, because it's not your abilities. You could have great abilities and have a terrible, terrible effort, no effort, and your attitude could stink. You're sucking the lifeblood out of everybody. You're like I call them Draculas, right? You ever around a Dracula personality where they might be really good at something, they might be really smart, but they have zero people skills and they suck the energy out of a room. So that's a fixed mindset. And if you're interested in this kind of stuff, there's a social science researcher, Carol Dweck, I think is her last name. She has all kinds of different studies and analysis on these things. And you may start with a fixed mindset and you can move to a growth mindset as long as you have the awareness. If you have this awareness, you can move from one to the other. Very, very easy to do. Not easy to do, but definitely doable. So that's what that slide's about. And again, since I'm visual, I love this one. This is like, it's called the iceberg illusion, okay? You look at the iceberg and you only see the top part, right? It's you see success, this beautiful iceberg. It's what's underneath it that is attributable to the success. Persistence, failure, sacrifice, disappointment, discipline, hard work, dedication. Those are the things that people don't see, right? Like when you have an award for, say, sports and you've got your three guys on the podium, everybody sees the medal, right? They don't see what went into getting that medal, right? Maybe not going out on the weekends, maybe being up at 5 a.m. to hone your athletic ability or hone your trade. People don't see that, they just see the success. And you see this all over obviously all over social media, particularly now when it comes to entrepreneurs. Like that's the sexy word now, being an entrepreneur. If you don't like the stuff underneath here, persistence, failure, sacrifice, disappointment, discipline, hard work, dedication, don't be an entrepreneur. People want to look at being an entrepreneur as like, oh, I'm driving around in, I don't know, this car, this Bentley. That's not the case. And maybe if you are, good for you, but probably all these things underneath there got you into the Bentley. So just something to think about. And again, I'm a visual, so I like those, like, think of yourself as an iceberg. These are all the things. This is the secret sauce to being successful, not just as a business person, anything in life, you can bring these things. And this is perhaps my favorite slide because it speaks to me, and it's the importance of small steps. And you've got two ladders. The ladder on the left has a bunch of rungs equal together. So you're climbing small steps as you go constantly. The ladder on the right has far fewer rungs. You have to reach really high up to start, okay? And then to get to the next level, you're constantly reaching, huge reaches. I have found, and I think this is a key piece of being an entrepreneur, that the one on the left where you're taking small steps pretty consistently, you might get stuck on a rung every now and then. Maybe someone will help and come push you up. Maybe you'll push yourself up, whatever the case may be. But if you can just think of this visually, if you're going through something that seems like it's a big thing, just continue to take small steps constantly, over and over again. I said, this is baby steps is one of the things that I say to myself as like, to keep me moving when I feel like, oh God, I can't do it. Baby steps, baby steps, baby steps. I say it in my head, baby steps, keep going. And I also am a bit of I should say a huge perfectionist. So you always want everything to be perfect and right, and you can't do that. You got to just keep going. So it helps me. And I hope it helps somebody else.
Those are great visuals. I love all three of them. I'm actually familiar with them all. So I appreciate you for sharing those. And I think those are all three universal life tips, if you will, that I think, apply at any stage. At this stage in the HypeHuddle, this is time for our final 5 questions. Natalia is going to ask you, Mary. And these are actually created, and this is, I guess, almost an homage to your son, Andrew, who created the final 5 questions. It's left us with the pursuit of his professional football career. So this is his questions to you, if you will.
Okay, awesome. So for our final 5, the first thing we would like to know from you is if you could speak to your high school self today, what is a piece of advice you would give yourself?
I would say, let your guard down. I thought everything was wrong with everybody else in high school, and I had a wall up. So let your guard down and be involved.
All right. So Mary, what is your favorite business or wellness related book?
I don't read a lot of business per se books. I do a lot of reading, and wellness books. I would say Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, because it's about how your brain works and your thoughts, and that book for me is highlighted and dog-eared. That's a huge one for me. I love The Alchemist, and yes, it is a business book. It's the journey of like Santiago and fulfilling his personal destiny and dreams. So everyone should read that kind of book. I totally buy into that. And another one that I really liked was Big Magic. I'm drawing a blank on the woman's name, but I heard her speak, and you can Google it. She's fantastic. About creativity. And it's about how we all have creativity, and somehow it dies in us, and following that creative path, whether it's like in your profession or somewhere else.
Very cool.
It's the same woman Elizabeth Gilbert. That's who wrote that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Our third question is, what's a common trait that you've noticed in those people who succeed in entrepreneurship?
I would say they're people who are willing to be accountable and action, those two pieces. They have like an ownership mentality. Everything that happens in the business, they're willing to step up to the plate. We're talking about successful entrepreneurs. They're willing to own stuff. And then the third thing I would throw in there would be they are able to identify and bring good people into whatever business they're running, whether it's support system or your employees. They attract the right kinds of people because people grow the business, right? It's not just me and my husband. It's the people who I have on my job sites and my crew. They grow the business. So I would say action, accountability, and people. Good people skills.
I love that. All right. So Mary, what are some of your hobbies?
I like to run. I consider myself athletic. Yoga is a hobby of mine. Poetry. I read other people's poetry, a couple that I love, like Mary Oliver and a few others. I write my own, but I would never share it with anyone because it's not so good. So it's just for me for now. So writing and journaling and poetry, those are probably my key hobbies.
Nice. And lastly, we want to know what gets you hyped.
Well, I'm going to go with my poet lady, Mary Oliver. What will you do with your one wild and precious life? The thought of having this one wild and precious life, that gets me hyped. I'm excited about my life. My family gets me hyped. My children, my nieces and nephews and extended family. Doing good work gets me hyped. And being surrounded by good people. And then I'm going to say kindness. Kindness gets me hyped. Kind people. People who, and kindness doesn't mean, oh, you're nice to everyone. Because sometimes you can't be like nice, you're honest. But honesty and kindness, that really gets me hyped. And one other thing, Martin McElroy, my husband, because my relationship with that guy, that feeds, my relationship with myself is most important. My relationship with my husband is secondary. And that guy pushes me and has helped me. He gets me hyped.
I love that. That's such a great answers. Thank you so much for sharing, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for those questions.
Yeah.
Shout out AMAC. Thanks, Mary. I wanted to open up the floor, if you had anything, last words or any last pieces of advice you'd like to share.
I guess my last words would be to share, there's a Celtic saying called Anna Karam, and I don't think I'm pronouncing it right. It's a Gaelic term. It means friend of the soul. So if you can be that for yourself, and if you can find people like that in your life and bring them along, that's everything. But be your own best friend first.
Is that a greeting? Is that something you say to someone when you depart?
No, it's a concept by a poet, John Donahue. He's deceased, but it's a Gaelic term. I'm not even sure if I'm spelling it right. It's Anna, N-A-H, Kara, C-A-R-A. It means friend of the soul. Friend of the soul, right? So, and whatever is a friend to you of the soul, music, poetry, put those things into your life, other people, but be your own best friend. That's what we have to learn in this for ourselves. I think be your own best friend. It's hard. It's hard.
That's really powerful. I really like that. I'm going to use that and remember that. Thank you for sharing. At this point, we'd like to thank you for joining us, for sharing, being vulnerable and sharing your story. Mary, if anyone wants to get a hold of you or reach out, how can they do so?
You could email me through my website. My cell phone is there. Any young person who has an interest in anything that I have said, whether it's career-wise, if they're thinking about trades or construction, or a female navigating that world, or you're not sure about college, or you want to talk about something, or maybe you too had issues from a home where there might have been alcohol present, reach out to me. I'll definitely get back to you.
Awesome. And then anyone who's listening, it's graphicbuilders.com. Is that correct?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hype Light Podcast Experience. If you like this episode, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episodes.